Good afternoon, everyone. It is Tuesday, December the 29th, 2020. It is currently 12:24 p.m. Central Time. I'm coming to you live from Victory Baptist Church, located here in Ovalo, Texas. And I want to say this right from the start. I know you've seen the title for this podcast episode, right? And you may go, whoa, what is he talking about? What is going on? You need to just listen carefully, all right? I was sitting here at the church. I just finished a live broadcast where we were studying the book, The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis, a classic book in church history. And as while I was teaching that, while I was working through that book, I got a notification on my iPad, and I had to look at the notification like twice. I was trying not to get distracted from the actual teaching, but I looked at I almost stopped that episode going, wait, what? What is this news article? And as soon as that live broadcast ended, I immediately grabbed that news article, did a little bit of other research to gather some information. And I'm like, you know what? We're going to address this right now because a lot of people on their mobile devices may be getting the same notification about the same news article. And I want to address this as soon as possible. All right. I don't know exactly. Let me look here. Let me see if it tells me. This was published at 8:10 this morning. So I don't know why I just got the notification, but I just got the notification. But at 8:10 this morning is when this news article was originally published. So that means a lot of people may have already seen it. And so I want to jump in and try to offer, some thoughts here and really try to unpack exactly what is this article claiming, exactly what's going on. And let's try to take this apart and let's try to think about this carefully. Let's try to be fair. Let's try to be biblical, and let's know exactly what is going on. Now, there's going to be some parts of this trying to cover this, and I'm going to get very bothered and upset, but I'm going to try to do so in a calm manner. I'm going to try it because, there's a lot here to unpack. Are you ready? Here, first, I'm going to give you the headline as it appeared on my notification. Here is the headline that appeared on my notification. Ohio deputy who killed Casey Goodson has used faith to justify use of force before. So we have an Ohio deputy who killed Casey Goodson, 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 and that this deputy has used faith, that's the word, faith, to justify the use of force before. So somewhere in the past, this deputy used faith, and from what I can tell, his Christian faith as justification for using force. Now, what does his justification of using force before have to do with the shooting of Casey Goodson? Are they trying to say that the two are related, that he used his Christian faith as a justification for this shooting? Exactly what are they trying to imply here? So we're going to try to take it all apart and try to put this all together. First, let's start with the actual shooting of Casey Goodson. Let's see exactly what occurred, all right? This was published December the 12th, 2020. All right. And here is the headline for this article. Here's what we know about the Casey Goodson fatal police shooting. And I think his name is Casey Goodson Jr. Casey Goodson Jr. fatal police shooting. All right. Here is what we know at this time. Now there may be some more updated information, and I'll try to do a search here just to ensure that I haven't missed anything. But here's the information that was published then. All right. Here we go. A Franklin County Sheriff's Office deputy was in Columbus, Ohio on December the 4th looking for violent offenders. Right, so here's the basic information. We have a Sheriff's Office deputy was in Columbus, Ohio. It was on December the 4th. He was there looking for violent offenders. Instead, he fatally shot Casey Goodson Jr., a 23-year-old black man who had no criminal background, according to a family attorney, and was not the target of any investigation. So if you're there looking for violent offenders, how do you end up shooting a person who has no criminal background, at least according to this report, and was not the target of any investigation? Hey, we're not targeting this person. He has no violent history, but we end up shooting this person while we're out there looking for violent offenders. How does this happen? Now, obviously, if you don't know, Casey Goodson Jr. was black. So, okay, now does race come into play here? So did something just go horribly wrong? Was race a factor here? What happened, right? What happened? And how does now the deputy, how does his faith come into play? And why did he use faith in the past to justify the use of force? And is he using that same argument for this use of force? There's a lot here to unpack, right? Here's what we know, according to this story, according to this report. Goodson's mother says he was shot as he tried entering his home after returning from the dentist and Subway, a quick stop he made to get sandwiches for his 5-year-old brother and 72-year-old grandmother. So he was coming into his own house, right? And he gets shot while entering into his own house after going to the dentist and Subway, and he was coming back bringing sandwiches to his 5-year-old brother and his 72-year-old grandmother. The two found Goodson lying on the ground, family attorney Sean Walton told CNN. So they find him laying on the ground. He's been shot. He was trying to come into his own house. All right, why did he get shot? What did he do? What was going on? Well, here's some more information. My grandson just got shot in the back when he come in the house, Goodson's grandmother told a 911 operator. He went to the dentist or somewhere and came home, she said later. All I know is there's a bunch of gunfire. He's not a bad kid. He doesn't have a police record. He works. I don't know what happened. All right. Goodson had put, okay, now here we go. Goodson had put his key into the door before he was shot and fell into the kitchen, Walton said. Hours after the shooting, his keys remain hanging on the door, the attorney added, a reminder to the family of how close he was to safety, the attorney said. All right. So he put his key in the door before he was shot and fell into the kitchen. Now, I'm assuming he was shot in the back. I don't know if we have confirmation of that. Now, I've got a related article here we're going to look at that seems to argue something different, but we'll look at this, all right? The shooting is the latest in a series in recent years involving young black men and teens in a city that has grappled with racial inequalities for generations. Over the summer, Columbus also saw demonstrations after George Floyd's death, during which protesters clashed with police, who fired rubber bullets and pepper spray. Demonstrations in response to Goodson's death are scheduled to take place over the weekend. The Columbus Division of Police is handling the investigation into the shooting, and the U.S. Attorney's Office in Southern Ohio has opened a civil rights investigation. Columbus Police Chief basically said on Thursday that he vowed for an independent and meticulous, unbiased investigation with a singular focus, getting to the truth of what happened to Casey Goodson and why. But more than a week after the shooting, many questions remain. Here's what we know so far. Goodson was an Ohio concealed carry permit holder and was legally armed at the time of the shooting, police said. He was not alleged to have committed any crimes, Walton said. A review of court records did not show more than minor traffic-related offenses. So he was permitted to carry a gun, all right? He was not alleged to have committed any violent crimes, and a review of court records said there's nothing on his record other than minor traffic-related offenses. Jason Meade, the sheriff's deputy who shot Goodson, was working for the U.S. Marshal's Fugitive Task Force looking for violent offenders at the time. But Goodson was not the person being sought by the task force, police said. So he wasn't the person they were looking for. And he ends up being shot while going into his house with the keys still hanging in the door. He was that close to getting inside the house. All right. It says here, authorities have provided vague details about the moments prior to the shooting, but it's still unclear what led to the interaction between the two and what exactly that interaction looked like. During the task force operation in Columbus, Meade reporting seeing a man with a gun and was investigating the situation when reportedly there was a verbal exchange prior to the shooting, Columbus police previously said. An attorney for Meade says Goodson pointed a gun at the deputy prior to the shooting, adding, "There has been confirmation that our client gave verbal commands for Mr. Goodson to drop the gun. Police have said no other officers witnessed the shooting. There have been no civilian eyewitnesses identified, and there is no body camera footage because Franklin County Sheriff's Task Force officers aren't issued body cameras." Meade's attorney, Mark Collins, also noted no eyewitnesses have been identified. So here's a situation where someone's going into their house to get shot, and the claim is that he pointed the gun at me. So I guess he pointed the gun at me, then didn't follow the verbal, according to the deputy, and then he turned, I guess, then walked into the house and then gets shot. All right. Now you could argue, well, wait a minute. If he turned from you and going into the house, then did you? I mean, you can make all kinds of arguments. I always hate these cases because this is the reason I hate these cases is because, this person says this person says this video seems to show this video seems to show this. And everyone argues like, well, no, yes, no, maybe he should have done this. He shouldn't have done this. Well, the issue always is, should he have been shot? Should he have been shot? Or should other cops been called to the residence and said, hey, look, we're out here. You're going to have to come out. We're going to have to talk about this and, come out peacefully with their hands. Could they have just done that? I mean, he was going into his own house. Now, you could argue, did they know he was going into his own house? Did they feel like a violent fugitive who had pointed the gun at an officer was running into the house and that could be possibly harming other people? You can make all kinds of arguments either way. I hate that. I hate that there's no video, there's no eyewitnesses. So the person dead, well, they can't offer a defense because they're dead, and the only person alive is the one who gets to tell the story. I don't like that at all. But I just want you to realize there's different accounts of what has occurred. And so there's going to be a debate about it. But well, let's just go through this, all right? Let's see here. Attorneys for Goodson's family said in their own news release, neither the city of Columbus nor any other investigation agency has alleged that Casey Goodson pointed a gun before Meade pulled the trigger. Now, that's interesting. So the attorneys are saying that, hey, neither the city of Columbus nor any other investigator agency, no one who's investigated this so far, is alleging that he pointed a gun at the police officer. So something here doesn't make sense. With Meade's statement issued nearly one full week after he killed Casey, it is critical to note that this is a classic defense often claimed by police. After they shoot and kill someone, they said it's also that after they shoot and kill someone, then they say, wait, he pointed a gun. So please note, he issued that one full week after he killed Casey. So did he place that in his initial report? Is it in the, I don't know. They said it's also critical to remember that often the evidence does not support the claim. Peter Tobin, a U.S. Marshal for the Southern District of Ohio, said last Friday the fugitive task force was wrapping up an unrelated investigation when a deputy saw a man driving down the street waving a gun. The man was confronted by the deputy and allegedly started to pull a gun, and the officer fired. Tobin previously told reporters he added the shooting appeared justified but would be investigated. So there's another investigation going on. Goodson's family attorney criticized Columbus authorities Thursday, saying they proceeded through their investigation with the assumption in mind that Goodson's shooting was justified. Casey was treated as a criminal. Not only Casey, but his family was treated as suspects. They were treated as criminals, the family attorney said. The responding officers, she added, brought with them their bias against Casey and in favor of Meade. She added that the way that the scene was processed that day is essential. In a series of tweets Friday, Columbus mayor said in the week since the shooting, he has heard over and over that statements made last Friday indicated the outcome of the investigation was predetermined. He said, this is not the case. The U.S. Marshal said it appeared the shooting was justified. He was wrong to make a statement, and his words were inappropriate, uninformed, and damaged the public's trust in the investigation. Yeah, you can't say that it appears justified until you got to finish the investigation, or you're coming in with a predetermined bias. All right. The mayor added local and federal authorities are committed to following the evidence, getting to the truth, and providing answers. Now, the Franklin County Coroner's Office said this week Goodson's manner of death was a homicide. An autopsy that was performed Tuesday found the preliminary cause of death to be multiple gunshot wounds to the torso. The coroner's office does not specify where on the torso the wounds are located. A full report will be released in 12 to 14 weeks. It was also awaiting medical records as well as a toxicology report. All right. The Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation did not accept the case. On Monday, Columbus police attempted to turn over the investigation to the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation, the state agency that typically investigates police-involved shootings, but they said they would not accept the case. We received a referral to take a 3-day-old officer-involved shooting case, not knowing all the reasons as to why so much time has passed before the case was referred to us. We cannot accept the case. So they waited 3 days before even asking them to investigate. All right. And that's all that they have. So there's a lot of conflicting reports going on here. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go back. All right. I'm going to see if we have, okay. Here we go. This is 3 days ago. Okay, now see, oh boy. All right, now this is 3 days ago. It seems that I have not been following this story. And the only reason I'm talking about it is because of this idea of using faith to justify the shooting. Well, I go to the Washington Post. This is 3 days ago. And guess what the picture is? The picture for this news story is not Goodson, not the man that was shot. It's not even a picture of the person who did the shooting. It's a picture of a Baptist church. Okay, now, wait. What does the Baptist church have to do with this shooting? So I'm trying to figure this out, because if faith is being used as a reason for this, or somehow some kind of justification for this, this brings in a whole theological dimension to this discussion. Right now, we've got a shooting where one is saying, hey, he pulled a gun, but it seems that possibly that claim was not made till a week later. I don't know. I'd have to see the initial police reports. That's what I would like a copy of. But there seems to, put it this way, there is competing narratives of what happened. But needless to say, the man was shot and killed. A man has been killed. Now, my thing is, where is Christianity coming into this? That's what I'm trying to figure out. So let me read this. This comes to us from the Washington Post, all right? A black man's fatal shooting by the police exposes Ohio congregations' bitterly opposing interpretations of faith and justice. Now, wait a minute. Okay. So we have the shooting. We have the shooting of a fatal shooting of a black man, but it exposes a congregation, a Baptist church's bitterly opposing interpretations of faith and justice. Now, here's the reason I want to talk about this, because, I'm just going to be honest. When the news starts talking about Christianity, the Bible, interpretations, I get nervous, because now you're dealing with things related to hermeneutics, the science of biblical interpretation. Do they even know what they're referring to? What are they talking about? What is going on here? So we're gonna go through this article. This is not the article that I saw the notification for. Again, this was 3 days ago from the Washington Post. So let's try to put this together. All right. We have a fatal shooting. A man is shot. The police officer seems to be claiming the man pointed the gun, but we don't know if that was in his initial report. The family attorney of the man shot is saying, wait, they took a week to make that claim, that this is a common defense after the fact, then say that the gun was pointed. There's no body cam footage. There's no eyewitnesses. And so the one person who could defend himself saying, I didn't point the gun, he's dead, so he can't defend himself. And you just have the officer can claim whatever he wants because there's no one else around to counter his claim. How are you going to get to the truth of this? I don't know. There's going to be probably competing narratives for a very long time. Obviously, we hope truth can be found and we hope justice can be carried out. That's what we hope and pray for. Now, so that we can continue to go down that path trying to find out what really happened. But for me, for this episode, as I started off, I am interested in this, trying to mix Christianity into this. Like, what does Christianity have to do with this? And the Washington Post, that's the narrative they pick up. And that's the narrative we're going to follow now. As we've kind of given you a basic overview, now let's try to follow this line of thinking. All right, so here we go. A black man's fatal shooting by the police exposes Ohio congregations bitterly opposing interpretations of faith and justice. And the picture here is Rosedale Free Will Baptist Church. Rosedale Free Will Baptist Church. Now, the idea of free will, most likely this is a church that definitely comes from the Pelagius line of theology. If you go study the doctrines of Pelagianism, semi-Pelagianism, we could get into a whole church history lesson, okay? But all right, but that's irrelevant. I just, when you see the name Free Will Baptist, that's kind of giving you an idea where they're coming from, all right? Now, underneath that headline, they have a picture of the church. That's what they have. And so that immediately, from a theological perspective, I'm like, oh, I've got to investigate this story. Underneath the picture of the church, they have these words. The Rosedale Free Will Baptist Church in Central Ohio, its pastor, Jason Mead. Wait, the pastor of this church, is that the deputy who shot Goodson? That's what this seems to be. The person who shot the person who shot the individual is a pastor of a Free Will Baptist church. So now you can see why the media is going to run to Christianity all over. Christianity is going to be like one of the parts of the narrative of the story. So as a Christian podcast or a theology podcast, we need to then jump in and try to offer a clear biblical theological perspective on all of this. All right. So let's go through this again. So the Rosedale Free Will Baptist Church in Central Ohio. And if you're new to listen to me, that's the way I like to do this. I like to take you through the process of gathering the information and trying to interpret this. I don't like you just to sit there passively. I like you to kind of walk with me through the process of putting it all together. And then at the end, we'll summarize everything. All right. That's the way I preach. It's the way I teach. I like you to be with me through the process. I don't like to just go to the process and just throw everything out at you. I like you to go through it with me. All right, so here we go. The Rosedale Free Will Baptist Church in Central Ohio, its pastor, Jason Mead, who is also a Franklin County Sheriff's deputy, killed 23-year-old Casey Goodson Jr. while on assignment with U.S. Marshals. So now we can confirm that the pastor is the one who shot and killed the individual. All right, now, listen, you just, for those of you who are Christians and been Christians for a long time, you've got to understand how this may appear from the world's perspective. The world's perspective may, wait a minute. This pastor is a cop and he killed someone? How does that coincide with Christianity? Now you may say, well, that's just foolish on their part. It may be foolish on their part, but we have to try to explain this. Now, if this is a bad shooting, listen, if this turns out to be a bad shooting, and let's say clear evidence comes out that Goodson did not point a gun, and for some bizarre reason he ends up shot and dead, hopefully not racism, but if it's proven it's racism, if it's proven, I'm saying if all of those things are proven, that Goodson did not point a gun, and that for a racist reason, he shoots this man and kills this man as he's trying to go into his house with some Subway sandwiches. If the worst case scenario is proven, then you have to expect the news media is going to point to Christianity. That's just they're going to look to Christianity and go, so this man's a pastor who preaches scripture and he killed a man and a racist shooting. Like Christianity is going to get dragged through the mud through this. So that's why we have to at least look at this and try to take this apart. Let's see what the article actually reports. All right. This was published December the 26th at 5 a.m. Rosedale, Ohio. I don't know exactly where Rosedale is. I guess it's in central Ohio. I don't know how big it is. I don't know anything about the city as well. I know we have listeners in Ohio. You can probably fill me in. And the listeners in Ohio, you probably know more about this shooting and you've seen it on local news and know far more about it than I do. So whatever I've gotten wrong, please correct me, all right? Because obviously we're trying to piece this all together. All right, so here we go. Rare is the law enforcement officer, okay, this is the way it's written. Rare is the law enforcement officer accused of an unjustified shooting whose accusers can point to even a single public statement made by the officer advocating misconduct. Now hear this again. So they're saying it is rare. Rare is the law enforcement officer who's accused of an unjustified shooting whose accusers can then point to a single public statement made by the officer advocating misconduct. In other words, it's very rare for an officer to shoot someone in an unjustified shooting, and then you can say, wait, that person made a public statement advocating misconduct. That's very rare. You don't have like, oh, there's that cop that shot that person. Well, here's their public statement where they advocated misconduct. They say that's very rare. Now, listen, but that's what supporters of Casey Goodson Jr. believe they have in a recorded sermon delivered by the person who fatally shot him. Uh-oh. Now, you know what we're going to need to do. All right, now listeners of the Theology Central podcast, you sometimes are the best researchers in the world, right? I don't have a research team. You know what we need to do? We need to find this supposed sermon, and we need it in its entirety. Now, I bet you, I can almost guarantee you it's been pulled down from pretty much everywhere. But if we can find it, we need to find it, and we need to analyze the sermon in its entirety. Because look, we want to be fair. All I want to do is truth. I'm going to state this so many times. From a Christian theological perspective, truth is all that matters. We don't care. If the truth makes Christianity look bad, so be it. We follow the truth. Doesn't matter. You know my philosophy. With or without offense to friend or foe, I'm going to tell of the world exactly as it goes. I don't care who I offend. I don't have a side. The only side I want is truth. Every Christian should operate from that perspective. Put away lying, speak the truth, don't bear false witness. Truth is what matters. So if this man preached a sermon that seemed to justify misconduct, then it needs to be exposed and it needs to be reviewed. But I wonder did they interpret the sermon correctly? Now, let me make this clear. If you are not a student of Scripture, you're not a student of the Bible, you know very little about the Bible. As a preacher, when I preach, in most cases when I preach, I'm preaching from the perspective that the people who are going to hear it have a basic understanding of different things, right? A basic understanding of different things. So I may be reading something in the Old Testament where God tells someone to go in and kill every man, woman, boy, girl, and child. And I preach that. I don't always stop and go, now listen, everyone. Please understand that this is how God operated under the theocracy at the time. And here would be some theological justifications. We would say that he could do this, and we could try to offer that. But we do not believe in any way, shape, or form that that's the way Christians should operate today, and that we should not go in and kill everyone, because that was how things operated at that point. And try to offer an explanation and theological and try to get into all of that. I may just preach that with the idea that most people listening will already have enough theological understanding to understand that that's not what we're calling for today. But someone else may hear that and go, whoa, Christians support genocide, going in and killing everyone? Whoa. That's why I always say we need to hear the sermon. We need to hear the sermon. So if we can find the sermon. Now, we're going to go through here. All right. Oh, boy. Okay, here we go. Let's read this whole thing again. There's a lot here to put together. We got a lot here. When I started this, I did not think, I didn't realize how many cans of worms we were going, how many cans we were going to open up, and we were going to just end up. I didn't realize all the different things we were going to uncover here and trying to figure this out. But let's work through this. All right. So here we go. Let's read the first paragraph again. Rare is the law enforcement officer accused of an unjustified shooting whose accusers can point to even a single public statement by the officer advocating misconduct. But that's what supporters of Casey Goodson Jr. believe they have in a recorded sermon delivered by the person who fatally shot him. Jason Meade, the Franklin County Sheriff's deputy and Baptist pastor in this no stoplight town 30 miles west of Columbus. Okay, remember I said I didn't know where the town was? Well, here we have. It's a no stoplight town, so it's a small town, 30 miles west of Columbus, Ohio. I think we have a listener who lives in Columbus, Ohio. I think that's where they live. So 30 miles west of Columbus. All right. So all I had to do was keep reading. I would have gotten all the information we needed. But remember, this article wasn't the one. This is not the article I had originally pulled up. But when we did that search, I came across this. So I'm reacting to this in real time. A recording of Meade's remarks delivered at a 2018 convention of the Ohio State Association of Free Will Baptists has brought religion to the forefront of a controversial police killing with opposing interpretations of the gospel squaring off on Sunday mornings here in central Ohio. All right. Now, wow, there's a lot here to unpack. So he obviously preached a sermon at the 2018 convention of the Ohio State Association of Free Will Baptists. And this sermon has brought religion to the forefront of this controversial police killing with opposing interpretations of the gospel squaring off on Sunday mornings here in central Ohio. Now, stop right there. Now, that's not what they mean, all right? This is someone writing who probably doesn't have any religion. Different interpretations of the gospel. Now, if we're going to go with different interpretations of the gospel, we're going with the different interpretations and how the good news of being saved. Like, so you believe you have to be saved this way. We believe that people are not arguing about how people are getting saved. They should have said, squaring off. Let me read the statement here. They should have said people started arguing about opposing interpretations of Scripture. The gospel, as Christians, we refer to the term gospel as the good news about salvation. People are not arguing like, hey, because of this shooting, we're going to have an argument about how someone gets saved. No. They're going to be arguing about a statement that comes maybe from one of the gospels, probably from Matthew is what I'm guessing. From Matthew, it's probably where we're going to end up going. But we're not having different interpretations of the gospel. We're having different interpretations of Scripture. The gospel we refer to as the good news of Jesus Christ and salvation. So, yeah, I don't like the way that's written. So let's read it again. So a recording of Meade's remarks delivered at a 2018 convention of the Ohio State Association of Free Will Baptists has brought religion to the forefront of a controversial police killing with opposing interpretations of the gospel squaring off on Sunday mornings here in central Ohio. During those remarks, the SWAT officer described violence in the line of duty as a righteous release. So carrying out violence in the line of duty is a righteous release. This raises all kinds of questions, right? But before we even ask those questions, there's only one thing that we have to consider. What is the context of those statements? What does he mean? We need the whole sermon, right? I cannot offer any fair analysis of what he means there, right? A righteous release. Now, from the world's perspective, like, wait, you're a church and you're going to describe acts of violence as a righteous release? What is wrong with you? And so, see, Christians have to be equipped in how to respond to this in a careful, biblical, thoughtful way, all right? Now, let's continue. This is supposedly statements from that sermon, all right? And these are in quotations. I work for the sheriff's office. Now it has ... So that means they've got there's missing content here, missing context here. I work for the sheriff's office. I hunt people. It's a great job. I love it. Wow. He hunts people. That's frightening to me. Now, this has nothing even to do with Christianity at this point. If I hear a police officer saying they hunt people, I don't like that, because I thought they were there to protect and serve people, not to hunt people. Now, I do not know. Someone listening, you may know the motto for the police force there in this town. You may know what the motto is, because in a lot of towns on the police cars, they will have kind of the motto. And in many cases, it's to protect and to serve. That's how I view police. They're to protect and to serve. Now, sometimes in the protection of people and serving people, you do have to hunt down someone who's dangerous and violent. But your goal is not, you don't say, my job is to hunt people. No, your job is to protect and serve people, which may involve hunting down dangerous criminals. So, but again, I don't have the context. But I don't like the way that sounds. And you can see why no one else would like the way that sounds. And again, he's a pastor. Hey, I'm a pastor, but I also work for the sheriff's office, and I hunt people. It's a great job. I love it. Okay, now, please note, the way this is written clearly indicates he said something before I hunt people. I work for the sheriff's office. Something is said that's missing. I hunt people. It's a great job. I love it. That's all spliced together. We need the full context of those statements. We need the sermon. If you find the sermon, you need to send it to me, newsif@yahoo.com. All right, he continues. I worked this job 14 years. You know I ain't never been hit clean in the face one time. It's a fact. It ain't because I'm so good. You know why? I learned long ago I got to throw the first punch. And I learned long ago why I'm justified in throwing the first punch. Don't look up here like, oh, police brutality. People I hit, you wish you could hit. Trust me. What in the world? Oh. What is that? All right, let me read this again. I worked this job 14 years. You know I ain't never, and I'm just reading it. I mean, I'm not trying to be sarcastic here. I'm reading it the way it's written. And he's like, I know, you know I ain't never been hit clean for the first. I can't read that without going to a Southern accent. I know it's in Ohio, so there's probably a way they say it in Ohio that's different. I think of the way people say I ain't here in Texas, and it's I ain't going, and because, well, we're here in Texas, all right? So I remember, well, never mind. It's a whole different story. We won't go there. All right, I worked this job 14 years. You know I ain't never been hit clean in the face one time. It's a fact. It ain't because I'm so good. You know why? I learned long ago I got to throw the first punch. And I learned long ago why I'm justified in throwing the first punch. Don't look up here like, oh, police brutality. People I hit you wish you could hit. You could hit. Trust me. Now, let me stop right here. If I was in that convention, all right, of the 2018 Free Will Baptist, and I would not have been there because I'm not a Free Will Baptist and I completely reject their theology, all right? But if I was there and I heard that he's a police officer, I would have been like, whoa, what? You hit people first? Okay, sir, I would have to contact the police department and say, do you realize you've got a police officer who's out here bragging that he hits people first? That's not acceptable. Forget that he's a pastor. Forget that he's a Christian. That's not acceptable. Clearly, from a Christian perspective, we don't hit first. Okay, there's no scripture for that. Okay, clearly not. Even for those who argue for a self-defense justification, you don't hit first. That's not the Christian perspective. Now listen. I can't imagine being a police officer. I guarantee you there's a police officer, as a police officer, there's got to be times you want to hit first. But why would you be bringing this into a sermon? Why would this be mentioned from the pulpit? It's almost like a man bragging. And trust me, men have egos, and we do a lot of bragging. We like to brag to show how tough we are, how bad we are, how bold we are. And sometimes we come across like little kids trying to play grown up, and it's embarrassing. I've been guilty of it. You've been guilty of it. All right. Well, not all of you, because a lot of you are women. So you've not, but you can probably, as women, you probably understand how men can act. We sometimes act like little boys trying to look the strongest, the fastest, the biggest, because, well, our egos are fragile. Our egos, I mean, if the wind blows too hard, our egos get hurt. I mean, men are pathetic with our egos. It's sad, but we are. We're like, I want to be the best. I want to be the strongest, and I want to be the biggest, and I want to be the best, and as soon as we don't feel that way, then we get mad. All right. So, all right, let's continue. All right. Advocates for Goodson have seized on the recordings which local media first circulated this month, and evidence of Meade's unfitness, describing his views as morally reprehensible interpretations of the Bible and a probable indicator that he prejudged Goodson on December the 4th when Meade shot him to death. Now, let's listen to this carefully. All right. So here are the advocates for the Goodson family. This is what they are claiming. They seized on the recordings, which the local media first circulated this month. So the local media there was circulating these recordings. Now, again, I guarantee you, they circulated the recording. They did not circulate the full context of the recording. They did not. All right. And so we've got to hear the full context. They circulated this, and they, as evidence of his unfitness, they described his views. This is how they described his views: as morally reprehensible interpretations of the Bible. That his interpretation of the Bible is morally reprehensible. Now, again, I would have to go, what are they basing that on? What hermeneutic are they using? Like, you get into a lot when you start talking about biblical interpretation. Man, you got to have some people qualified to start talking about this stuff. And they said it was a probable indicator that he prejudged Goodson on December the 4th when Meade shot him to death. All right. They continue. This is a man who was called to protect and to serve, who's talking like that. Now, again, that's my perspective. You're a police officer. Your job is to protect and to serve, not to say I hit people first. That's how come I ain't ever been hit in the face, because I hit people first. Whoa. I hunt people. Now, again, I need all those statements placed in fuller context. I do. So I don't want to be too quick to judge, but this starts making me very, very, very bothered. All right. So I go back to this paragraph. This is a man who was called to protect and serve, who's talking like that, says City of Grace Church Pastor Michael Young, who has counseled members of Goodson's family in the days since his death. He's using the platform for the pulpit to teach and preach things that are contrary to Scripture. Now, again, if you're going to say he's preaching and teaching things that are contrary to Scripture, we need to see exactly the context. Now, some of those statements that we have seem shocking and definitely don't seem Christian, but I need the fuller context. I need to see and hear what he actually said. Representative Joyce Beatty of Ohio's 3rd Congressional District, who has appeared at protest on behalf of Goodson, that's very different from my religion. Can you equate hit first with shoot first? I don't know, but the fact that he's boasting about this kind of mindset is very troubling. Now, I'm going to tell you what is very troubling is, why didn't anyone at that convention report it? Why? How could you sit there and go, That's a good thing. Look, I remember being in a church in Papillion, Nebraska in the 1990s where some visiting evangelist talked about homosexuals and he punching them on the face. And I had a major controversy with the pastor, demanded an apology and said, wait, what is, like, this man can't be out there just punching homosexuals in the face. That's ungodly and that's wrong. And the people in the church who heard it was like, amen. Like we're so ungodly. That's ungodly satanic. So I've heard Christians do some pretty crazy things about what's being preached from the pulpit. Right? That's not acceptable. And sometimes it's Christian men who get this like really braggadocious, macho kind of thing. And I don't know where that comes from. It's not from your Christianity. But look, I've said things from the pulpit that comes from my own flesh as well. So we all Christians can do that. All right. Meade's attorney did not respond for a request for comment. Meade is a 17-year-old. Meade is a 17-year police veteran who served in the Iraq War with a Marine Reserve until that suffered a unit that suffered extensive casualties. Let me read that correctly. So he's a 17-year police veteran. He's been on the force for 17 years, which is even more frightening if he's been on the force for 17 years going around bragging that he hits people first and that he hunts people. Now, again, we need the fuller context. He did serve in the Iraq War with a unit that suffered extensive casualties. Meade killed Goodson while on assignment with U.S. Marshals after they attempted unsuccessfully to execute an unrelated warrant. He remains on paid leave while federal, state, and local investigations into the incident continue. Officers at the scene were not equipped with body cameras. Meade's attorney has said previously that Goodson, who had a concealed carry permit, waved a gun at police. His family has rejected any narrative suggesting that the 23-year-old posed a threat to Meade's life. On Sunday, sheriff's SUVs filled with gravel. Let me read this again. On Sunday, sheriff's SUVs filled the gravel parking lot outside Rosedale Free Will Baptist Church. Meade's associate pastor, Paul Moore, met parishioners and resolved to cancel services and instead caravan to the Southwest Free Will Baptist Church in Columbus, where Meade's father is pastor. All right. A week earlier, the Sunday morning service at Rosedale became the target of protesters after its address had been shared on social media by Goodson's supporters. And in exchange between Moore and protesters, Moore defended Meade. "We can't have you talking bad about our pastor." He and fellow members of the church have defended Meade in media interviews as well, cautioning others against passing judgment until the investigation conclude and officials find whatever they find. All right, now, I understand protesters showing up at the church. I think the church could issue a statement saying what they believe about the use of force and what they believe about, when force is justified, when force is not justified, and offer some kind of clear teaching. Like, why not put out a sermon saying, here's what the church actually teaches, unless you don't want that teaching known. Like, put out a statement. This person says, "I have the right to support my pastor." Moore told a local TV station, "because I know his character." He said he feels that Meade has been portrayed unfairly, adding they're trying to make him a villain. Now, again, I understand you want to defend your pastor, but at the same time, let's realize a human being has been killed. All right. So I think maybe you want to put forth sympathy to the family who lost a loved one. And I have no problem saying, let's wait until all the information comes out. That is perfectly acceptable as well. The Southwest Free Will Church was the location of Meade's ordination in 2013, according to a biographical page on Rosedale Free Will website, which is temporarily down for maintenance. Yeah, I bet you it's down for maintenance, according to a message on its homepage. The website houses dozens of his sermons, but they're unavailable since the shooting. Yeah, I bet you got down, especially if he's look, if you talk that way once in a sermon, there's a good chance you talk that way a lot in a lot of sermons. And I bet you, I hate to play conspiracy theory, but it seems awfully convenient that all of the sermons were removed. I mean, that's on purpose. That's on purpose. The service at Southwest Free Will host about 50 congregants, as John Meade led a Christmas-themed service concentrating on Jesus Christ's sacrifice for humanity, with detours to reject homosexuality. I still say it's Adam and Eve. I don't care what the rest of the world says, he said. And instruct the faithful not to speak with the news media, but to pray for his family instead. See, that's the kind of stuff that just comes across so bad. Hey, don't talk to the news media. Pray for my family instead. How about pray for the family of the individual you shot and killed? Right? Because clearly they don't believe that the shooting was justified and they lost a loved one. How about pray for mercy? Even if you believe the shooting was justified, they still lost a loved one. How about pray for the community, that the community doesn't get torn apart along racial lines? How about pray for unity and racial, reconciliation? He goes, there's a lot of stuff being said that's completely out of line, the elder Mead said. John Mead declined to speak with the Washington Post, as did Moore. At the City of Grace Church, 15 minutes away in the northeast corner of Columbus, Young began his sermon with a pledge to continue fighting for Goodson. Wearing black jeans, tan Timberland boots, and a black Justice for Casey hoodie, Young explained that on the Sunday before Christmas, I would normally put on my red or green, but I wanted to be more international with what I wore today, and I wanted to represent Casey Goodson Jr. and his family by demanding justice. There's no way you can frame it. There's no way you can frame it where you don't conclude this man was murdered. All right, and let's see what else we have here. Recent national pollings, now this is something here that I think is interesting. Recent national polling suggests that few conservative Christian services have chosen to broach the topic of police brutality compared to other groups. Now, why is that? Why hasn't conservative Christians dealt with the subject of police brutality? Shouldn't Christians have a biblical perspective on police brutality? Or if you do that, you're considered liberal and you care about social justice. I think justice is a biblical topic. How should the police act? What action should we support and what action should we reject from a biblical perspective? Same thing with war. Well, just war doctrine. That's a doctrine I hold to. We need a Christian doctrine when it comes to war. We can't just, hey, Republicans in office, we support war. Oh, wait, the Democrats in office, we reject war. You don't support or reject war based off who's in office. Hey, we support the police. That doesn't mean you support all of their actions because some of their actions may not be you believe in agreement with biblical principles. Okay, so that's interesting. According to a July Pew Research poll among U.S. adults who attend in-person religious services or watch services online or on TV in the previous month, 1/4 of white evangelical Protestants said they had heard sermons that have expressed support for recent Black Lives Matter protest, while somewhat smaller share said they instead have heard opposition to the protest. And among the Christian groups Pew researchers analyzed, white evangelicals are the group least likely to say they have heard sermons in support of the recent protest. Meanwhile, black Protestants are much more likely than any other group to have heard sermons expressing support for the Black Lives Matter protest. Now here, you know what drives me crazy? That means that we're looking at the protests through racial lines and not biblical lines. Right? So how about we look at the subject from a Christian perspective? Why is that so difficult in American Christianity? Why can we not look at anything from a theological perspective, and we always have to bring race, politics, and 9,000 other issues into it? We are Christians. I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian before I'm white. Okay, I'm a Christian before I'm any political party. My Christianity is what matters, not my racial identity. My identity is in Christ. All right, and there we go. And that's the end of that story. So here's what we need. We need the sermon. I don't know if we're going to be able to find it, but we need the sermon. So I will ask all of the people who listen, if you can find the sermon, email it to me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. And wait, here we go. Someone already sent... Okay, someone just emailed me saying, I got the sermon off the Washington Post news article you're reading. Okay, let me go back and see if I can find where he may have found it. There's probably a hyperlink that I'm not seeing here. Oh, wait, here we go. I think, is this the hyperlink? Oh.
God don't make mistakes. He's perfect. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He changes not.
Okay, here's what we'll have to do. So, awesome. The Washington Post, man. Mad props to that. thanks to the person who emailed me. Thank you. I love the fact that they put a link to the actual sermon. That is awesome. I wish I guess it's a hyperlink. They says a recording of Meade's remarks delivered at a 2018. That's a hyperlink, that phrase, a recording of Meade's. They don't say to see, they don't have like in parentheses to hear sermon, follow this link. It's just a hyperlink. And I did not see the hyperlink when I was reading it on my iPad. So what I'll have to do is I'll have to find this article. Hey, if, for the person who just sent me that email, if you can send me to my email address, the link to that Washington Post article to my email, then I can open the email on my computer and then right click it and then download the audio to my computer. Because I can get to the audio on my iPad, but I'm going to need a link to the article. So if you can send the link to the Washington Post article to my newsif@yahoo.com email address, then I can open that email from the computer and then I can download it and we'll do so. Now I'm not going to do that right now because we've been at 55 minutes and looking at all of this. But yeah, this seems like a major problem here. This seems like a major problem. But what we'll do is we'll dedicate an entire episode where we analyze the sermon. Now we may have to do that tomorrow. Yeah, it's after 1:00. Yeah. My stomach is going to start growling and trying to crawl out of my body. So we'll have to do this tomorrow. Man, there's so many other things I needed to do today, but that's okay. This is worth it. This is worth it. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to get a copy of this sermon. Now the audio seems really low and I don't like that, but we're going to have to go with what we get. We're going to play the whole sermon and I will analyze it piece by piece. And we're going to look at what he had to say. And then we'll take, there's another article from USA Today where I guess there's an interview with him previously making some argument. And I'm going to try to find that. And he makes some argument about a passage in Matthew. I'm not going to bring that up now. We will address that in more detail later because there is lots of disputes with the Christians about how to interpret that passage in Matthew. It's on the Sermon on the Mount when Jesus says how we are to respond to evil. There are Christians who say it doesn't mean what it appears to say. And so we're going to have to get into a hermeneutical argument about, okay, well, what does it actually mean? And we will have to look at that. So, and what we'll do is probably the next time I'm back here at the church, we'll start with this. We'll take the sermon, we'll analyze the sermon, but I'll say this in conclusion. This is very important. First and foremost, Casey Goodson was shot and killed. He's dead. A human being was killed. That should always bother all of us. It doesn't matter why they were killed or a human being was killed. A human being was sent into eternity. And as Christians, we believe in heaven and hell. That's a horrible thing. When any human being dies, it's not a good thing. All right? It's always bad because we believe all life is sacred. There's a sanctity to all life. Remember, we're pro-life, right? So that's horrible. So pray. If you're going to pray for his family and pray that justice would be served, that evidence would come out, that facts would come out. And I don't care where the facts lead. I want facts, I want evidence, and I want truth to be established and then justice to be served. I'm not going to make any statement about what happened because I wasn't there. I have no video. I have nothing. I do have one person giving their side of the story, but the other person can't give their side of the story because they're dead. So I've got to at least take that into mind. And then we've got these previous comments. Does these previous comments, should they be used in how we view the shooting? We got to be very careful in jumping to that conclusion as well, because I have preached before, right? Like a lot. And I've said things in a sermon that when I go back and listen, I'm like, I don't know if that really reflects. Does that really reflect my thinking, or did I get caught up in the moment in preaching? Did that reflect more of just a preaching, like I'm preaching, and then you get caught up and you say things and you go, I don't know if that really reflected the way I truly think about that subject. Anyone who's preached has been there. So we've got to at least take that into consideration. But we will analyze the sermon, and here's the reason we're going to analyze the sermon. Listen to me carefully. Because the news media is now connecting the shooting with religion. They're now connecting the shooting with Christianity. They're now connecting the shooting with how some people interpret the Bible. So we need to investigate this carefully and thoughtfully, and then we'll see what we discover. All right, there we go. I'm going to stop right there because I need to go get some food. All right. Yeah, a tragic situation, but there's a lot. You can give me all your thoughts, newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. To the person who emailed me, thank you so very much. I completely missed that. I did not see the hyperlink. And if you'll send me a link to that Washington Post story, then I can click on that hyperlink on the computer, download it, and then place it here in the software, and we'll have it ready to go when I come back, hopefully tomorrow, depending on what the weather is here. If I may try to come here early and try to beat any ice or snow and get some things done for tomorrow. All right, there we go. I'll stop right there. If you did not listen to my teaching on the imitation of Christ, where we covered the subject of the virtue of prudence, please listen to that because I believe it's a very, very important lesson. And I think it will be beneficial to everyone because we need to exercise prudence and the virtue of prudence right here with this story. So now we're taking the doctrine. We looked at the biblical topic of prudence. Now we're trying to exercise that virtue and covering this story. See how that all fits together? Yeah. All right. Everyone, have a great day. God bless.